Alright, welcome to this video where we will be looking at net operating income and how to calculate it from a real estate listing. So let's jump right in. And first of all, before we get started, explain what net operating income is. So net operating income is what's left over from the rental income you take in after you pay for your operating bills. After you pay for things like tax, insurance, gas, also called heat sometimes on a listing, or rentals and water. You may be thinking, what about my mortgage? That's not included in a net operating income. It's part of your expenses, but it's not part of the operating expenses of the business day to day. So with net operating income, we pretend that you own the property outright and have all of the mortgage paid off. You're paying nothing in financing, just operating expenses. Okay, so with that down, let's get into our first example. So this building has 4 apartments. And those 4 apartments, the rental income, when it's all added together, remember this is per month, we have to multiply that by 12 to get to the annual. Because net operating income will always be expressed annually. And the reason for that, and I've explained this before in other videos, is these expenses are all given annually. They're all given annually. I'm just going to finish this so I don't lose my train of thought. Why are expenses given annually? So taxes are changed, like in Sudbury where we are, they're changed every year. Usually they go up. And they won't change, from the month of June to the month of July, but they will change from year to year. The way you pay them might be you divide that bill in 12 and pay once a month. But it would be the same for the entire year. Your tax assessment is not going to change during a year. So this is important to know, this tax bill here, because if you're just given a monthly bill, you don't know if that's the month before it went up or the month after it just had gone up. So this is a good kind of metric for an entire year, and you can divide that up because you'll most likely pay it quarterly or monthly. Same thing with insurance. Insurance could be, it's probably going to be fixed month to month, but something like electricity or heat, in the winter it's very cold here, you're going to have to spend a lot on heat. But in the summer, it's warm, just like everywhere in the northern hemisphere at least, and it's warm, and that means there's going to be less heating costs in the summer. So when it's averaged out over the year, you get a whole picture, you get a full picture of what's going on with that property. That's why we do this. For the same reason you might use more water in the summer for watering the grass or what have you. So let's go right back to the numbers and let's go over I don't want to cover up these numbers. So all of these rental incomes, 508, 995, 525, and 675, as you can see, this is a fourplex, right? These 4 added up, multiplied by 12 equals 32,436. And that would be a gross. That's what we call gross income. Gross just means before expenses. Just means before we've taken off our taxes and insurance and our water and all these things. This is the gross income. That's everything added up, nothing taken off. The other part of net operating income, I should probably have done this first, but NOI equals gross income minus operating expenses. Operating expenses, remember, are everything except for financing. Financing's not included in the NOI. So we have our gross income, we're half done. The other half is expenses. So if you take all of these expenses that we already talked about, they don't need to be multiplied by 12 because this is for the full year. Take all of these, that will add up to 10,880. And I've already done these calculations just to make the video faster. So you have your gross income, and we have all of our expenses, all of our operating expenses. So we get 32,436 minus 10,880. And what does that equal? That will be 21,555. So now you have the net operating income. You can calculate the cap rate. That's what that's used for. You know, among other metrics, that's probably the most common one. And you can watch the video on cap rate that I did to kind of see what you would do with that net operating income after you've calculated it. All right, let's move on to the next one, because that one took pretty long with me explaining everything. Let's just go through this. So apartment 1, $967, this is per month. Remember, $1,500 per month, $800 per month, $1,095 per month, $725 per month. And these are, we're going to assume they're all inclusive, okay? So all of these added up, multiplied by 12, because there's 12 months of the year, will give us an annual gross of $61,044. $61,044. It's a pretty big chunk of change. So 61, that's our gross. I'm just going to write gross so we don't forget. And this is all of our expenses. You know, there could be other expenses. This is a good time to note this. There could be other expenses. There could be, you know, your grass cutting guy or snow removal. But typically in a place like Sudbury, this stuff isn't included because a lot of local investors will do the stuff themselves to cut costs. But if you know this is your building, this is why I'm teaching this. If you're going to buy this building remotely and you can't or you don't want to do the grass or snow, you should know how to calculate this. So you can add this here, all your operating expenses, or if you have a rental water heater, you can add the expense here, right? And then once those are all added up, because that would be an annual fee added up, in this case, they add up to $16,720. $16,720 per year. So if you minus, remember, NOI equals gross income minus operating expense, and that equals, in this case, it's $61,044 minus $16,720, and I've already calculated this. It's 44324. So that would be the net operating income of this property. Now on its own, that doesn't tell you a whole lot. It doesn't tell you how it's performing relative to the price. That would be something like cap rate would come in, but that's why we're calculating the NOI, is to give you an idea of after operating expenses and without financing, how is this property performing. All right, so let's move to the third example, the last example, and this one's really simple. We just got 2 apartments that are all inclusive, that are bringing in $2,000 a month, and this one I can do in my head because it's very simple numbers. So $2,000 a month times 12 is $24,000 a year. That would be gross income. Now let's talk about operating expenses. I can't do this one in my head, at least not quickly. So these 5 expenses, these are to the typical 5 expenses, right? Tax, insurance, heat, hydro, and water. And I didn't remember to mention this, but actually on this one, rental is included. You know, so you have tax, insurance, gas, which also can be expressed as heat because that's what natural gas is used for up here, or oil. We have utility cost, so that's why there's only 5 expenses here, because utilities has been put, water and electricity have been put into one category. That's, you know, a different way of doing it, but it does happen as well. You gotta know what these things mean, right? So insurance, tax, electricity, water, and heat, those are the typical 5 that you'll see. Those are what most people want to see. If you have a rental, like in this case, there's a rental water heater that's taking $13.96 of operating expenses every year. This case, no rentals, don't have to include it. Okay, just thought I would mention that. So let's get back to this. So all these 5 expenses, the typical 5, added up would be 6,353. And there are many, many more operating expenses that exist that you can add in. Things like garbage, things like vacancy. And vacancy is not really an operating expense, but it is an expense. All right, so let's get back on task here. So 24,000 minus 6,353. That means our NOI, again, I'm just taking all of our gross income, and minusing our operating expenses. So what's our net operating income on this property? $17,647. Now in another video, we'll talk about other expenses, but for now, that's all you need to know on how to calculate your net operating income. Thanks for watching and have a good day.